Welcome to True Health Tuesdays. Okay, tonight, Zika virus. Oh, okay, now I got in trouble for calling it a Zika virus, that we're going to pop this myth, but I guess I was the only one that really got that. Okay, so when we look at it, this, you might suspect that this is just one in a series of completely psychotic things to funnel money from one portion of the government to the pharmaceutical industry, which funds the government. And, you know, does anyone remember the bird flu swindle? Yeah. Okay, or the swine flu swindle, or the H1N1 swindle? Mm-hmm. You know, don't go to Disneyland because you'll catch measles. Okay, all this psychosis things. Well, when we look at this, they're saying that there is a virus, that it is dangerous, and that it is causing microcephaly in Brazil, but no one really is sure of that. Now, is Zika dangerous in pregnancy? If you catch it, how is it spread? Does it cause disease if you catch it? Okay, and microcephaly, how many people in America have it? Okay, so we're going to answer some of these questions. Well, Zika virus, or Zika disease, is caused by a Zika virus spread by this Aedes mosquito. That's it. Okay, just like mosquitoes can spread malaria, they can spread Zika. And this, it's interesting that illness, the Zika illness, if 5 people get bit and catch Zika, one of them will get sick. Anyone good at math? Okay, that means 80% of the people that catch this disease don't get sick at all. Okay, now the symptoms of Zika, you're sick for about 2 to 7 days. This is if you're that 20% that actually catches it. I mean, you get stung, you get bit, you catch it, and 80% don't develop symptoms. Okay, so this one, you're sick between 2 to 7 days, and this is actually out of the Center for Disease Control. They call it a very mild illness, their treatment, and this is the CDC's site. Okay, fever, rash, joint pain, a little bit of red eyes. And so what's interesting with this too, once a person has been infected, they may be protected from future infections. Okay, just like if you catch chickenpox, you're not going to catch it again. Now, when we go on the history of this, from this, according to the CDC, 80% of the people that actually catch this disease have no symptoms whatsoever, and they may be protected for life. Okay, now this was discovered in Uganda in 1947, this virus. Now, there have been outbreaks all around the world. Okay, but very, very mild outbreaks because, like according to the CDC, 80% of the people that catch it don't have any symptoms whatsoever. It's that mild. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So, does it sound like it's really dangerous or that it's not any big deal? Now, if you were really logical and you're thinking, well, 80% of the people don't have any symptoms whatsoever, would you want to go in there and study the 20% that do? And find out perhaps if there's a weakened immune system? I'm just throwing it out there, you know. I'm just thinking that maybe, you know, we should study the people that get sick and think maybe there's something deficient in their diet, nutrition, or something, okay? Well, the Pan American Health Organization in May 2015 said, oh my gosh, there's confirmed Zika virus in Brazil. But by February 2016, the World Health Organization said it's a public health emergency. Now, where are they getting this? Okay, now, granted, it's covering a big portion of South America. It's also covering, you know, portions of Africa. The problem is, what does the CDC say for the best treatment for those 20% that actually develop symptoms? The same stuff they would give for a cold. Okay, you're talking rest, drink plenty of fluids, stuff your grandma would tell you. Okay, they want you to take medicine, you know, like Tylenol or something, which is really stupid, but, you know, they're not that sharp to begin with. So, but this is the CDC, okay? So if the panic isn't there, so now let's look at what's supposed to be caused by the Zika virus. Okay, now it's called microcephaly. Now it's got a couple of different causes. It means that children are born with heads that are smaller than what they should be. Now, it could be some type of weird genetic anomaly, okay, and that we know it could be caused by radiation and things. Complications in pregnancy, lack of oxygen, that can also cause it. We're looking at exposure to alcohol, drugs, vaccinations, we know that can cause it. Severe malnutrition, that can cause it. And inability to break down a chemical, okay, or some type of chemical assault on the body. So we're looking at malnutrition, toxicity, malnutrition is going to be deficiency, and some weird problem during the birth. Now, let's look and see where the rules are kind of changing. Microcephaly, how would you measure it? Does everybody have a size 7 and 7/8 head like mine? I know my son does, but he got too many compliments when he was younger. Okay, so what is microcephaly? Okay, what's macrocephaly? I mean, so they had to come up with a number. Traditionally, it was a head with about 33 centimeters. Well, in December, they changed it. They dropped it down to 32. And now they're thinking, well, wait a second. No, let's call it 31 and a half if you're a girl. Okay, so now if you reduce your criteria for what you consider microcephaly, do you think that will expand the population that's diagnosed with it? Yes. Yeah, of course. Okay, and it's interesting that they said there's going to be a lot of false positives, but don't worry about it. We're just going to, diagnose it. Now, normally in microcephaly, because remember, what causes it? We're talking malnutrition and toxic exposure, okay, and problems with the birth, which kind of makes sense because if you're looking at Brazil, there's chronic malnutrition, there's some, problems with the birth, and there's a lot of toxic exposure. But even that, normally there's about 150 cases a year in Brazil. There's about 400 cases a year in America. Now, do we have the Zika virus? No. But do we have toxic exposure and malnutrition? Absolutely. Okay, now in October, they're saying there's almost 5,000 cases, 4,780 cases of microcephaly. And usually there's only 150. So this sounds like, oh my God, panic, run for the hills. And a third of these cases are in this state called Pernambuco. Now, in Pernambuco, the Brazil government is now saying, yeah, we kind of miscalculated. It wasn't really 4,780 cases. And in fact, out of those 4,780 cases, only 404 have been confirmed as microcephaly. And out of them, only 17 tested positive for Zika virus. So out of the 4,780 cases, Zika virus, which if you're infected, you may be protected for life, has never been shown to cause microcephaly, and 80% of the people that are infected of it have never had any symptoms. Okay, that's only in 17 out of the 400. Okay, now another 700 babies have been ruled out, and they're slowly checking each of the 5,000 kids, and there's still 3,670 investigated. Now, it's interesting. Mia Teresa Vieira Saravino, pediatrician, and she says there is a consensus among the medical groups that the current criteria is too broad and it's drawing too many false positives. Does that make sense? If you're playing a game and you say it's 33 centimeters and all of a sudden you change the criteria, you're changing the rules. And I love this, February 3rd. There's actually very little scientific evidence tying Zika virus to this particular condition. There is. But the World Health Organization is saying, oh my God, run for the hills. The main worry is the potential link. No one's saying it's a link. Potential link. Now, to microcephaly and brain damage. Now, let's look at the U.S. Because remember, what we're talking about causes it. We're talking about problems with the birth, malnutrition, toxic environmental exposure. There's about 25,000 cases right now in America. 400 per year are produced. Okay, so 400 people in America are born with this birth defect. Now, Brazil has about 70% of the population we have, so it kind of makes sense that they would have about 70% of our cases if the cases are similar. Now, out of the 400 cases that have been confirmed as microcephaly, only 17 have tested positive for Zika virus. So it doesn't make any sense. And when you start looking into this, What's the real motivating factor? There's absolutely no scientific evidence. But now Obama says $1.8 billion goes to the pharmaceutical industry to develop a vaccine for this. Okay, now it is an election year, and granted, the lobbyists need to fund the economy. Okay, they need to fund the elections. So I'm just saying it's a smart move if your sponsorship is the pharmaceutical industry, that you funnel that money back into the pharmaceutical industry. Okay, it's good business. Now, we know that there has been no link ever, and this is the Argentines Physicians Organization. Previous Zika epidemics did not cause birth defects in newborn, despite infecting 75% of the populations. Okay, now this is common in these countries. 75% of the people show that they've been stung by it. But what happens to 80% of the people that get it? There's no symptoms. Okay? In Colombia, there's absolutely no records of microcephaly. And it's kind of interesting what the Colombian president said. They checked 3,177 people in the country, pregnant women, that were infected with the Zika virus. They tested positive. Not one of them had a birth defect. Okay, so evidently, it's only being Brazilian that's a problem. If you're Colombian, you're okay. I mean, it's crazy when you look at this, at how, and this is all just like fact after fact after fact. Okay, now, and this is frustrating when you realize that the World Health Organization is going to be buying a lot of the fake vaccine. They have to keep generating that panic. Does anyone remember Ebola? How, oh my gosh, it's being imported in this country, run. And then you start to find out that different countries in that area were starting to wipe it out. Well, it's the same thing. I mean, the World Health Organization is trying to maintain that panic. Although a causal link between Zika infection and pregnancy and microcephaly has not been established, the circumstantial evidence is extremely worrisome. But wait, I'm reading this quote here. Shouldn't she say, except in Colombia? Okay, let's go on what causes microcephaly, because wouldn't that be better? See, instead of this like little panic, people running around saying Zika. Okay, we know poverty, vitamin deficiency, herbicides, pesticides, larvicides, and vaccine. We know for a fact, absolutely, those cause it. Okay, now, is there a high incidence of poverty and vitamin deficiency in the area of the birth defects? Is there a huge amount of pesticides or herbicides or larvicides in the area where the birth defects are coming from? Okay, are there an unusual request for pregnant women being vaccinated with something that they never were? Okay, does that make like more sense? Yeah, okay, so when we look at it, the outbreak, okay, in the States is in largely agriculture and very poverty-stricken areas. So do they have healthy nutrition or poor? And it's interesting because the lack of sanitation and typically vitamin A and zinc deficiency both are linked to birth defects, okay, in this area. And with both of those being depressed, we know that it weakens the immune system. In vitamin A, I'm going to give you a list of the references that we have on this, but vitamin A deficiency is linked to microcephaly. And we know that vitamin A deficiency is endemic in the area that it's affecting. I mean, this isn't like a guess. This is one of the causes. The zinc, okay, also plays a vital role in brain formation. Now, the CDC even says the cause of microcephaly is malnutrition and exposure to toxic chemicals. Does that make sense? Nobody in the world is saying that it's associated with the Zika except for the people that want to fund the vaccine. Now, so you got this mixture of nutrition poor area and high pesticide use. And we know environmental pollution and toxic pesticides actually cause birth defects. We know that. I mean, that's been around for forever. And Brazil cultivates more genetically modified crops, and they use glyphosate, or the Roundup, which has absolutely been linked to birth defects in experimental animals. Okay, because there's no studies on humans. We're just assuming that since it negatively affects a rat, it probably negatively affects attorneys. Wait, I didn't just say that, did I? Okay, no, rats and politicians. That's insulting to attorneys. Okay, there's another one, and this is a larvicide, and it causes birth defects in mosquito larvae. And this has been sprayed everywhere in this area, so it's in the drinking water. It's actually sprayed by Sumitomo. They're a partnership with Monsanto, which you've heard them. And it's pyroproxyfen. Now, it's been used in the same area where the birth defects are. We find it in the water. We know that it's a chemical larvicide in mosquitoes. It hasn't really been tested in humans, but we know it's an endocrine disruptor, and it causes mutation of the cells. We know that. That's absolute, and it has been linked to birth defects. Now, this larvicide, and I love this, again, Argentine Physicians Organization. Now, this is not the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, Georgia. These are people in South America, okay? Malformations detected in thousands of children from pregnant women living in areas of Brazil state added pyroproxyfen to drinking water are not a coincidence, even though the Ministry of Health places a direct blame on the Zika virus for this damage. What would be the advantage, okay, of placing blame on an innocuous virus that doesn't negatively affect 80% of the people? And I mean, it's kind of like that sleight of hand, like what's going on up here and the guy's stealing your wallet down here. Okay, so 80% of the people that get Zika don't have infection, but we're looking that an absolute poisoning of the population with pesticides does. And now, what if you poison, okay, with this larvicide, okay, in a malnourished population? Wouldn't you want to cover that up if you were the government? Mm-hmm. I would. Okay, now, it turns out that the Brazilian Ministry of Health had injected this pyroproxyfen in reservoirs, because this is where mosquitoes breed. So why not put it in a reservoir? No, don't say that it's drinking water and it might negatively affect the population. I'm sorry. I don't know what he's doing here, one of those health nuts. Okay, now this is where 35% of the microcephaly cases are occurring. Now, Atrazine. If you get a chance, there's a TED Talk on Atrazine. Now, this is one of the most toxic substances ever. It causes massive mutations inside of frogs, and it's actually deadly to human babies. It's actually more used than glyphosates. Now, and it does, small head circumferences is listed as a side effect of the prenatal atrazine exposure. Now, and I love this, Journal of Environmental Health. The most obvious cause of birth defects in this area is direct contact and absorption of the pesticides. A study of pesticide use on tomatoes in the northern state of Pernambuco, Brazil, indicate high exposure to pesticide workers, poor application methods, which threaten the ecology of the area. So this isn't any guess. This is fact. Now, the workers that go in and clean the pesticide equipment, they're doing it with no protective gear. And when you look at the women that are cleaning this pesticide that has known negative effects on pregnant women, you're talking 71% have miscarriages. That's hellaciously, that's criminal. Oh, wait, if it's criminal, I got an idea. Let's, blame a virus that doesn't really cause a problem. Okay, this is criminal. These guys, and it's being sold as a bill of goods to Americans because they want to generate fear. And it's just absolutely criminal. 11% of these women that are cleaning this gear, okay, are having malformed offspring, mentally damaged. I mean, 32%, have problems with the pregnancies. Now, here's A neonicotinoid is, well, it's actually an insecticide. And when you look at it, have you heard of how the bees are disappearing? There's a couple of phenomenal talks about what this does. And it's being sprayed everywhere down there because it is an insecticide. And it does cause skeletal malformations. In December 2013, neonicotinoids are suspected of causing developmental problems in babies and children. I mean, this is, when you look at this, a study in 2013 showed adverse events with embryos and developing, I mean, this is what's being used there. Because remember, what does the CDC says causes microcephaly? Pesticides, toxic exposure, okay, malnutrition. Of course, they're not going to be saying anything about vaccines because they have patents on vaccines. But let's look at vaccines. Now, since there was a whooping cough outbreak, they thought, let's get an idea. Even though vaccines have never been studied on pregnant women, let's inject them with a DPT shot. And they don't know whether it's tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of pregnant women, but they mandated it. They said everybody's got to get it. Now, I don't know if anyone's ever seen the viral shedding video that we did, but when you get the DPT, you actually shed the whooping cough. You actually spread it. I was watching the Meet the Kardashians or something. Yeah, I was watching it. Yeah, it's mindless TV. Okay, you know, so I switched from the documentary and I thought what regular people watch. Okay, so I'm switching back and forth between Swamp People and Meet the Kardashians. Okay, and I'm looking at these guys that are eating alligators and I'm thinking that looks cool. And this other one, they had a girl coming back from the hospital with her baby. And they're all getting the DPT shot for herd immunity. And I'm going, God, the people eating the alligator are so much more educated and smarter. Okay, because here you guys are going to be spreading this pertussis, weakening the child's immune system, and they're all happy in their own world. Well, a large portion of these pregnancies that Brazil forced are, again, you hear it, Pernambuco, in that area. Okay, so now do vaccines, can they cause birth defects? Well, yes. Okay, the Tdap, when we look at it, we're talking brain inflammation, brain damage. Okay, and this again goes along with the microcephaly. Journal of Pediatric Neurology, atypical vanishing of the white matter disease, microcephaly, okay, and hepatosplenomegaly provoked after the DPT vaccine. This is out of the Journal of Pediatric Neurology. Now, I don't know what a pediatric neurologist, if they would actually still utilize a DPT shot, okay, knowing that it can cause brain damage. And then these are just journal after journal. And it's saying Journal of Brain and Behavior Immunity. You're talking psychotic illness, increased cytokines, so that's inflammation. Journal of Biological and Psychiatry, cognitive impairment. Again, with these shots, we're looking at Journal of Brain Behavior and Immunity, 2006. Neurodevelopmental diseases, alters fetal brain development, Journal of Neuroscience. Increased seizure susceptibility, Journal of Neuroscience. Promotes autism spectrum disorder, Medical Veritas, 2008. See, when you hear the government-controlled media that's in North Korea, no, I'm sorry, when you hear the government-controlled media in America, okay, that they just keep, vaccines are safe and effective, vaccines are safe and effective. Yeah, unless you read the data, okay, if you want to have your head in the sand. So this is the solution. So you don't need to run away from the Zika virus. You don't need to run away from those mosquitoes. Because what happens to 80% of the people that catch the virus? Nothing. Nothing. And those 20% of the people, what do they get? Mild cold-like symptoms for 2 to 7 days. What do you think happened? Why did that 20% of the population get sick? Survey says, weakened immune system? Good, so what's the solution? Strengthen the immune system. Avoid all vaccines, because obviously those are neurotoxic. Avoid exposure to pesticides, because that's what the CDC and all the data says. No pesticides, no larvicides, no herbicides. So does that mean if you're living in an agrarian culture like Kansas, okay, Midwest, in America, could that be where some of those 25,000 microcephaly kids are from? Yeah, but you're not going to hear that. Okay, detox your body if you've been exposed to that. Strengthen the immune system. And it seems too simple, doesn't it? But nothing, I mean, the data is there. It's only through the ignorant media trying to, it's sleight of hand. We know what the cause is, but we're going to blame an innocuous virus. So the 5 keys to health, and we talk about this on every health talk. It's true. You need to have a healthy nervous system because that controls every function. If those people in Brazil have a healthy nervous system, have regular exercise, not around pesticides, but regular exercise, if they have proper nutrition and they have healthy vitamin A, healthy vitamin zinc, healthy vitamin C, healthy vitamin D, does that make sense that they'd be more resistant to any type of disease? If they have sufficient rest, okay, and if they have prayer and meditation, which means they're not allowing fear to do it. Okay, now we've got a number of different references. All of these, you in the back, can you read line number 4? No, I'm just kidding. All these references are going to be posted so that people can go in and look at it. And it's not 1 page of reference. It's not 2 pages of reference. It is 3 pages of references. Okay, so instead of ignorance and fear, we're actually using facts and data. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, good. Next week, we're going to be talking about spinal stenosis and correction. I'm going to show you what causes it, what reverses it, and we're going to talk a little bit about reversing arthritis. So, thank you very much.